Ever wonder about the wild secrets behind music legends? You've absolutely got to meet this American soul legend. A story of tragedy, scandals, love affairs, and of course great music. The life of Bobby Womack. Before the legends of soul were written in gold, there was a man who carved his spirit into 6 strings. This is the story of Bobby Womack, the architect of a sound. He was a resilient genius who refused to be contained by a single genre. To understand the legend, we must go back to the fire and the faith of his beginnings. His journey spans decades, from the humble pews of Cleveland to the neon-lit stages of the world. It was a journey of radical transformation and hidden genius. Standing at the center of the storm, he became the resilient architect, the man who bridged the sacred and the secular. This is Chapter 1, Gospel Roots. 1950s Cleveland. In a modest living room filled with the scent of hard work, friendly Womack taught his 5 sons that music was more than sound. It was a lifeline. Friendly was a steelworker by day and a man of God by night. He demanded perfection, molding his boys into a vocal powerhouse known as the Womack brothers. They took their sound to the local churches, where the air was thick with heat and devotion. The Womack brothers were a fire that couldn't be extinguished. Young Bobby was the heartbeat of the group. On stage, he would lose himself in the music, his eyes closed in a state of pure spiritual ecstasy. The congregation clapped in a feverish rhythm, caught in the raw power of their harmony. They were gospel stars, but a new destiny was pulling up to the curb. Enter Sam Cooke, suave, legendary, and always looking for the next revolution. He saw in Bobby something that the church walls could no longer hold. From the shadows of a smoky venue, Cooke watched. He didn't just hear a gospel singer. He heard the future of popular music waiting to be unleashed. Cooke invited them into a world of glass and chrome, the professional recording studio. He began to mentor Bobby, whispering of a sound that could reach everyone. The transformation was more than musical. It was visual. To step into the secular world meant trading the traditional robes for the sharp, modern edge of mohair suits. Bobby began reinventing his gospel licks into something grittier. When he played the opening of It's All Over Now, he was breaking the code of the sacred. As the tour bus rolled down the long highway during the blue hour, the reflection of the church faded. Bobby was leaving home, carrying its soul into the unknown. The lights of the secular city appeared on the horizon. The architect was ready to build. Bobby Womack had arrived, and the world of music would never be the same. In 1965, the soul music world was set ablaze by a scandal that threatened to end a career before it truly began. The headlines were merciless. Bobby Womack had married Barbara Cooke, the widow of his mentor, Sam Cooke, just months after Sam's tragic death. The public saw it as a betrayal. The backlash was immediate and brutal. Bobby wasn't just a singer anymore. He was a pariah trapped in the shadows of his own home. He was an outcast in the city he helped build. The industry phone lines went dead. Booking agents stopped calling, and artists were warned to stay away. For a musician, the silence was a deafening sentence of exile. To survive, Bobby had to leave LA behind. He headed south to Memphis, Tennessee. Memphis offered a chance to disappear into the music and rebuild. He found sanctuary at American Sound Studio, where the noise of the scandal finally faded. Inside those walls, Bobby was the workhorse, the session man willing to play until his fingers bled to earn back his place in the booth. He became the industry's secret weapon. From the shadows, his unique guitar licks began to define the sound of the greats like Aretha Franklin. When they needed a groove that bit back, they called for Bobby. The outcast was secretly rebuilding the very foundations of soul music. Every dial turned was a step toward redemption. Bobby was transforming from a disgraced tabloid figure into a master craftsman, indispensable to the hits. It was here the rock soul blueprint was perfected. His style was a revelation, a rhythmic urgency bridging the gap between gospel and rock and roll. Professional respect returned. As the needles on the analog meters jumped into the red, it signaled a new era. Bobby Womack was a force of nature. But as his career reached new heights, his home life was fracturing. The marriage to Barbara was now dying in a cold blue silence. In the shadows of the studio, a new complication emerged. Bobby found solace with Linda Womack, Sam Cooke's daughter. A secret, whispered betrayal. The discovery was explosive. The fragile peace was destroyed in a moment of violent realization. The cycle of scandal had come full circle. Once again, Bobby Womack walked out into the night alone. Reputation in tatters, he carried the music that would lead to his solo renaissance. By the start of the 1970s, Bobby Womack was done being the man behind the curtain. He had spent years sharpening his tools as a session guitarist and a songwriter for hire, but there was a fire in his gut. This fire only center stage could satisfy. This was the birth of his true solo renaissance. When he released these albums, the music world realized they were not just listening to another soul singer. They were listening to a philosopher of the pavement. Bobby brought a gritty, socio-political edge to his music. It felt like a raw conversation on a sun-drenched street corner. He was not interested in the polished, polite sounds of major factories. He wanted the dirt, the sweat, and the unvarnished truth of the human experience. His sound during this era was a masterclass in tension and release. Take a song like That's the Way I Feel About Cha. It was revolutionary because it was so deeply vulnerable. Bobby was not afraid to sound desperate or completely overwhelmed by love. His guitar playing acted like a second voice, crying out between the lyrics with a stinging precision. Then came 1972, the year he truly became a cultural icon with the soundtrack for Across 110th Street. That title track became the definitive anthem for the urban struggle and the reality of life in the shadows of the American dream. When Bobby sings about the ghettos and the hustle, you do not just hear the melody, you feel the actual weight of the city. He established himself as the ultimate artist of authenticity, a man who could hold a relentless, funky groove while bearing his entire soul. But as his professional life reached these incredible heights, his personal world began to crumble. The pressure of the industry and the fast-paced lifestyle led Bobby down a dangerous path of burgeoning drug use. He began a long, grueling battle with addiction that would threaten to steal his talent, his finances, and eventually his peace of mind. And then the ultimate heartbreak occurred. In 1974, his brother Harry was tragically killed. It happened right in Bobby's own home, a senseless act of violence that left the entire family shattered. Losing Harry was a wound that never truly healed. It sent Bobby deeper into a spiral of grief and chemical escape. The man who had defined a generation was now fighting for his very survival, standing on the edge of an abyss. After the crushing weight of personal tragedy and the fading echoes of the 70s, Bobby Womack entered a wilderness that would have shattered a lesser man. The 80s arrived with a slick, neon-drenched soundscape that felt worlds away from the raw grit of his roots. During this era, Bobby found himself fighting a brutal war on two fronts: a music industry that seemed to have moved on, and a deep, spiraling addiction that threatened to silence him forever. He spent years in the shadows, navigating the highs and lows. It felt like a slow-motion collision with destiny. Yet, even in the depths of his struggle, his spirit refused to break. It was during these decades of hardship that his voice underwent a stunning transformation. The smooth velvet tones of his youth were replaced by a gravelly, weather-beaten instrument of pure survival. This new voice was a map of every road he had traveled, every mistake he had made, and every heartbreak he had survived. It was the sound of sandpaper and silk, a raw and honest testament to human endurance. He was no longer just a singer. He was a sonic monument to resilience, proving that the most beautiful music often comes from the most broken places. Just when the world prepared to write his final chapter as a cautionary tale, a remarkable resurgence began. In 2010, a new generation was jolted awake by his powerful presence on the Gorillaz track, Stylo. Collaborating with Damon Albarn, Bobby proved that true soul is timeless and knows no boundaries. That iconic, visceral cry at the start of the song announced to the world that the legend was back, and he was more relevant than ever. This partnership paved the way for his final masterpiece, The Bravest Man in the Universe. On this album, Bobby stripped away the artifice and stood bare before his audience, offering a haunting and beautiful reflection on life, regret, and redemption. It was a critical triumph that secured his place as a visionary, who could bridge the gap between old-school grit and modern experimentation. As we look toward the R&B landscape of 2026 and beyond, Bobby Womack's influence remains a foundational force. He was the resilient architect of rhythms, a master who understood that the groove must always serve the emotion. From the syncopated heartbeats of his guitar work to the soaring vulnerability of his vocals, his blueprint is seen in every artist who dares to be authentic. He survived the industry, he survived his demons, and he survived the changing tides of fashion to become something permanent. Bobby Womack lived 1,000 lives in one, and in the end he didn't just leave us with music, he left us with a masterclass. He remains the ultimate survivor of soul, a voice that will never truly be silenced. Thanks for joining us in the bar tonight. We hope you enjoyed these stories behind the legends. Please like and subscribe to help us improve the channel. Stay tuned for our next episode. See you next time.